Hey, dreamers, welcome back to your Dream Coach podcast. I'm Shayla Wey. I'm a small business coach, growth strategist, and believer that your dream life starts the moment you lead like you mean it. Well, today I'm diving into something I think a lot of us need to hear a lot more often: why growth isn't always fast and why that is okay. If you have ever looked around and thought, why is this taking so long? Or why does everyone else seem to be further ahead? Then this episode is for you. I'm going to talk about what real sustainable growth looks like in business and in life, and why it's not supposed to be fast, linear, or easy all the time. I'm going to share this from my own perspective, not what you should do, but what I have found to be true as a coach, a leader, and an entrepreneur walking this path right alongside you. And before we dive in, a quick reminder that if you haven't already, you can join the LFG Business Academy, totally free on school. I built it for small business owners and leaders like you that are growing with intention. Inside, you're going to find resources, community, and our free mini leadership series, which is an awesome place to reconnect with your power if you're in a slower season. So let's jump into this. One of the biggest mindset shifts that I've made is growth isn't linear, it's seasonal. So for a long time, I expected my business growth to be like a straight upward curve. But the truth is, it's more like seasons. There are spring seasons where you plant, summer seasons where you grind, and fall seasons where you harvest, and winter seasons where you reflect. And in winter, things might look slow on the surface, but that's often where the roots are deepening. So if you're in a slower season right now, it doesn't mean you're behind. It means you're building depth. I've seen clients hit really large months really, really fast. And I've also seen those same clients crumble under the weight of poor systems, mindset gaps, or just lack of fulfillment. So fast growth can sometimes be fragile. And when we think about growth without a strong foundation, it's kind of like building a house on sand. Fast wins can feel good in the moment, but sustainable growth, the kind that leads to a dream life, requires patience, intentionality, and inner work. That's leadership. And so when things can start, when things move slowly, right, the way I look at this is that slow growth really can force good clarity. And it doesn't mean that that has to take years, but when we just start taking action without that clarity, it can sometimes backfire. So when I'm talking about slow growth, it doesn't necessarily mean based on time. It just, when we look at the clarity piece, it gives you space to actually ask, is this what I want to be building? And if I've myself had to force quarters or, weeks or months in my business where I have to get that clarity so that I can show up in the right space. And something I work with a lot of clients on is, well, what is it that we really want so that we can hit the ground running? Because when we can take time to just pause and get clarity, that can allow us to then really get deep and then get that really fast growth. So clarity is expensive because it doesn't necessarily always get us that instant result. But what it does is in the slower seasons, you allow yourself that time to refine, adjust, and just build something that feels more aligned with your vision so that you can then get the growth in the right way. Fulfillment, when I think about this being such a key pillar of what I coach people on, is it's not always measured in speed. And this one hits really close because there were seasons where I grew quickly, but I was really exhausted. And then there have been slower seasons where I was more fulfilled, more present, more energized. And even if revenue wasn't record breaking, it allowed me to actually feel that fulfillment, because fulfillment can come from doing, fulfillment does come, in my opinion, from doing meaningful work in a really sustainable way. So it's not about racing into a number. It's about enjoying the process and knowing you're becoming someone you are proud of in the process. So again, just really taking that time to not just grow our businesses, just to grow them, but what is the whole reason for all this? I was chatting with a client yesterday about just taking a day to just pause. We can get so caught up in deadlines and all these things that we do day to day, but what is it all for? If your business is in a place where you have income coming in, and no matter where you're at, is that what is the bigger picture, is where I'm getting at this, is that if we're just constantly just burnt out and we're just never enjoying the journey, what is it all for? So it's really healthy and really good to take time out of your business, even if it's for an afternoon, to just go and be in nature. Because when we step out of what it is that we're doing day to day, we enjoy our journey, because then we have that clarity coming back into it. So fulfillment for me is obviously a huge pillar of what I do, because I really want to work with people that do feel fulfilled, not just in their workspace, but outside too, because we get one trip around the sun, and I want to make sure that anyone I'm working with is not only learning a lot, they're really fulfilled and they're really growing. And I really feel from the success I built for myself, that a lot of the people I've coached to build success, is it's a full pie, right? Is and fulfillment is so key. And sometimes when I'm working with people, growth isn't always one of those things that's visible. And this is really big, because just because the metrics aren't moving doesn't necessarily mean you're not growing. So, leadership growth, emotional regulation, mindset shifts, healing your relationship with money, none of that shows up sometimes just on your Stripe dashboard. So I can tell you, every time I've leveled up internally, every time I've coached people to do some of the inner work, or just take a few steps back to hone in on systems and strategies, and just really some of the things that need to be done in the business that don't necessarily show up financially right away, is they do get external results that will follow. So sometimes there's a bit of a delay, but it will always catch up. So we sometimes need to really trust what I refer to as invisible growth. And when we're in a slower season, what can happen sometimes is comparison can sometimes kill momentum. So it's really easy to scroll and think, oh, this person's growing faster than me, or this business is getting better results. But what I have found is that when we think about comparing chapters of our life to someone else's, it can really steal your power. And so instead of comparing, I really encourage people to track their own progress. I speak a lot about this with clients, and really, and this is how I've grown my own success as well, is we can feel a lot of things in business. We can feel like we're behind. We can feel like we're ahead. We can feel like things are going great. But at the end of the day, we have to really look at the facts. What's the data telling us? And so when we started tracking myself, when I started tracking weekly wins or mindset shifts, and just really tracking what I was in my control. And as I've helped clients do the same thing, what ends up happening is boundaries are held, our confidence can grow, and it allows us to stay really focused on our growth. And it reminds me too that we're actually moving forward. And that's one of the values of investing in a coach, because your coach is going to be listening and asking questions, and they can help remind you, well, look where you were and look where you are in all the different facets. So really intentional to track, but to not get so lost in the comparison game, because we can all sometimes go down that slope sometimes. And pressure makes purpose feel heavy. And when you tie your purpose to timelines or fast success, it starts to feel like pressure instead of passion. And I know that I've had to do this myself, or I've had to detach from the idea that success has to be fast. I've had to help clients really dive into, well, what does more mean? If your business did double or triple, does that really bring more to your life that you feel like you need, that you want? And sometimes yes, that is the goal, is that we want to hit these certain levels. And sometimes it's just allowed people to really get clear on, well, actually, I don't even know why my business has to be doing more at this point. So the mission doesn't change, but the pace can. And so if you're building something meaningful, just don't rush it. Give it space to evolve. Your dream deserves to be built with care, not just urgency. So again, take that with a grain of salt, that I'm not saying take 10 years to build a business, but sometimes when we just start going and doing, mistakes are made, and we can end up really, putting ourselves in a not a great space. We can get to burnout, we can get to bad maybe service, and maybe not the best products, right? And we can kind of end up, shooting ourselves in the foot a little bit. So when we're scaling, this is also another point, is that when we're going to scale our businesses, it sometimes does require us to slow down first. So a lot of people think that scaling means speeding up. But what I found is that scaling actually requires you to slow down, to zoom out, to rework your systems, leadership, and mindset. And when I think about scaling, is I actually think about it as, how do I get bigger results? How do I make more of an impact without necessarily doing more work? And so this is something I feel like I help most of my clients with, is the systems and the scalability. Is how do we look at the mission of what we really want to do here in the business, but how do we grow this in a way that doesn't necessarily mean more on us as leaders? And some of my personal pause worthy moments led to those bigger leaps, because I took that time to fix maybe it was broken before just adding more weight. And so that foundation piece is so key. And when we start to look at ways to scale, that it often does take us out of the business to really get clear on the why and how and what needs to change and what steps that need to be, implemented so that we then can hit the ground running and scale to a bigger level. And the other thing I want to mention too is that you're not behind, you're becoming. So many of us can just think that we're not there enough, we're not good enough, our business isn't where it should be. And at the end of the day, where you are now, there was a point in your life where you wished you could be where you are, right? Right in this moment. Okay. Chances are that older version of you looking ahead would be so proud of you right now. So that's where I really always want to double down on, when I'm coaching people, to just remind them that this is a journey, that you're not behind, you're becoming. And this slow season that you may be in right now might be shaping the exact skills, resilience, and clarity that you need for the next season of growth. So I've seen this again and again in my life and with my clients. Slow isn't bad. Slow is sacred. And don't miss the becoming because you're chasing the arriving. I think so many of us can be in that space where, well, once I get to this level, then I'll be here. And once I get to that level, and this is something I'm so grateful for, that I was, my mentors in my early years of leadership really challenged me to say that success is now. Success is now. Because even though we have goals and things that we want to achieve, doesn't mean that we're more successful in a year because of our business or our bank account. Success is now because you're doing the thing. And how do we make this journey of business and leadership and growth be something that we enjoy along the way? Because my mindset lately is, in 10 years from now, are all these things going to matter? And most of the time the answer is no. And so just do it, right? Do the things in a way that feel good, but really enjoy it as you're building this out. Don't miss, right? Like I said, becoming because you're chasing the arriving. And the last thing I want to just touch on here is that growth isn't the goal. Alignment is. Because here's the truth, is I used to chase growth for growth's sake. And I think there are seasons of life where being hungry for growth is so key to feeling alive. I still chase growth. It looks different in my life now, but the point I'm trying to make is that we don't want to just be chasing growth just for growth's sakes. Because I have some clients that I work with that are trying to hit different levels in business, which is amazing. That's what I'm here to support them do. But sometimes it's going into, well, why? And I'm all about growth. I think that's important for all of us always to be having that growth mindset. I think, though, what can get missed is that the alignment sometimes isn't there. So when we want to hit bigger numbers, more clients, faster wins, okay, I think that's all valuable. And I think that that's exactly, why businesses are there, is to make more impact. But sometimes what I do realize, and I help clients realize, is that if our growth isn't aligned, then sometimes it's not worth it. Because sometimes what it would take to get more clients and hit more numbers and bigger wins sometimes comes with some of those negatives. So my goal is that when I work with people is to get both. How do we grow a business, grow ourselves, and still have that alignment? Because I 1000% know it's possible. I want people to be growing for the right reasons. Because when we focus on aligned growth, when growth that actually feels really, really good, growth that reflects values, growth that honors the season you're in, that's really the LFG philosophy: leadership, fulfillment, and growth. And that is really what this is all about. So if this episode is resonating with you, I want you to pause for a second and just ask yourself, what season am I in right now? And what kind of growth do I really want? And what am I learning in the slower moments that will prepare me for the next level? You don't have to rush. You just have to keep going with intention. So if you are looking for support and strategy in your next session or next season, really, whether it's a slow season, a steady season, or just that season that's ready for scaling, come join us in the LFG Business Academy. It's totally free to join on School. And inside, you're going to find tools, templates, and our mini leadership series to really help you lead like a CEO, grow with intention, and find fulfillment along the way. So I want to thank you so much for spending time with me today. If this episode supported you, it would mean the world if you subscribed, left a review, or shared it with someone who needs a reminder that slower doesn't mean smaller. And remember, your dream life starts with the way you lead, the way you live, and the way you grow. I'm Shayla Wey, and I will see you next time on your Dream Coach podcast.